So there's coffee and tea just down here, and that's
yeah. First technical problem. I actually realized I don't have HDMI in the thing. Do anyone have this HDMI Thunderbolt?
Yes. Yes.
Oh,
nice.
Excellent.
And you are of course welcome to just take the coffee. If you take last, please, if you are capable of making coffee, some are not, some are. But if you are capable of doing that, please fill it up again, so we can have this continuous flow.
Yeah, I'm not supposed to do any magic. Men den sidder ikke skævt. Det er ikke fordi, jeg går ind og topper kvaliteten. Okay. Hello, everyone. Okay. Turn off, ignore, like so many other errors. Yes. Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm very honored to be here today, and I am here to present a little talk I have created about that I would like to call lazy game jammers. I like to consider myself a lazy game jammer, which basically means that I try to do the least amount of work as possible when participating in game jams. And I have a mantra I like to state that is that lazy developers are the most productive. And I will try to explain that in depth in a bit. So okay, in short, who am I? My name is Marc Pilgaard. I'm old, and I studied mediology here at AAU, like I guess some of you are. Actually, how many are mediologists? Basically everyone. Okay. Yeah, it's fine. In my daily life, I work as I call myself boss man at a company called Not Even Entertainment that is located here in Aalborg. And usually I wear many different hats. I usually tend to be the guy who goes as the project leader, and sometimes I do programming, and sometimes I simply just make coffee for the people. So I do a little bit of everything once in a while. Yes, as stated, I work at a company called Not Even Entertainment, which a couple of friends started up. What you see here is our last public appearance in called Gamescope, which was also located here. And we make mobile games. We have in December last year we launched our first mobile game called Midnight Delivery. Not an economical success, but it was fun nonetheless. And currently we are developing another mobile title called Surfertron, which is on the right side. And we were actually supposed to launch a beta of that today, but some technical issues occur, like so many other things. And we expect to release like maybe in the end of this month. But enough about me. A little bit about me, shortly. What I'd just like to state is that I really love game jams. I have participated in a few. I have also participated in a previous Crate Jam, the one you see in the top right corner, where I think the theme of that year was Satan Unicorn Hero, something like that. So we made a game that revolved around being the best goat to win the Satan's pride and become the Satan goat, and you had to kill each other. Okay, so what is this? What is it I'd like to state about lazy game jammers? First of all, I would like to get a few hands up in the air. I'd like to know, you guys, what do you expect from a game jam? What did you think would happen? What is your goal for this game jam? Any takers? Yeah, down there?
Make a game, probably.
Probably make a game? Yeah, cool. Yeah? Go ahead.
Have fun.
Have fun? Yeah? Nice? Yeah? Down there? Yes?
I just like making games and playing them afterwards.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Many people have different like ideas of what their goal of the game jam is to be. I like to think of it that there exist three kind of game jammers when participating. And now we really just categorize and we're really generalizing. There's the engineer, who is the guy who really like to like go knee deep in some technical things. Maybe a programmer who would like to develop a multiplayer game doing a game jam, or maybe an artist who would like to experience with a new technical style. We have some game jammers who would like to win the grand Create Jam prize. And then we also have the type of game jammers who, just to elaborate on this, by this I mean they don't care so much about the technicalities, they care much more about the full context of the game. So trying to develop the best possible game with what they got. And then we of course have the type of game jammers who would like to just have fun, do some networking, just take everything a bit more relaxed. And those are all viable options for a game jam. However, this talk is a little bit more centric about these kind of guys. Those who would like to think of creating the best possible game during these 3 days. And it's very important for you guys to actually, before you form your groups, actually define in your head what sort of game jammer are you. Because I have seen game jams where the engineer type of guy got into a group with these guys, and it ended up bad because the engineer guys, they thought, well, let's make a game including multiplayer. We can easily do that in 2 days. And then we have the other guys who simply just want to make the best possible game, and that ended up in creating this monster game. Ugh, like, oh. All right. So my game about is I would like to focus a bit on those who like to create the entire package. So what I see here today is that I see a small game development studio right here. You guys are going to make a game. Within 2 days, you're going to take it from scratch, and you're going to have a finished game. In a sense, it is not much different from like a big-ass studio who maybe, well, they maybe have 2 years to develop a game, but you guys have 2 days to develop a game. And some of the rules, regardless of size, still, that you will have to take as many shortcuts as possible. You have to find all the sneaky ways you can go from getting from A to B. And that's why I'm saying be a lazy developer. Because time is everything. You don't have much time. You don't have time to create these beautiful, epic sceneries, and you can't create like an MMO in your time or anything. So you have to really be careful about your time. And companies like lazy people. Companies really enjoy them because they think differently. They like to think, oh well, do we really need this, what do you call it, very, very big elaborate animation system, or can we just go with something simple? And I really believe that game jams are a good place to practice these lazy habits. So I'm here today to try to present a few of the points, the few techniques I use myself, both when I participate at game jam, but also when I work in a company. What sort of lazy practices I use? The first one I like to introduce is some sort of statements. I remember my first time at game jam. I had a tendency to like have my inner monologue, and I had taken many what you call bad choices when I participated. And one of them is that let's create everything from scratch. Our game must be custom. We must create everything from scratch. And if we take anything from the internet, it is like it's cheating because it's not really our game anymore. Now is it? And in a sense, I think you should put that mumbo jumbo into the pocket because it's not relevant. If you're here to create the best possible game, you should try to take, you should learn from experience, or you should really consider using other people's work. Of course, under the right copyright laws and so forth. But there exist so many resources online that you should use. And I know that a lot of you already, you're already thinking about doing this for sound. Yeah, I don't know why, it's always sound. Oh, let's create some code ourselves and let's create some animations, but sound, we can scrap that, we can get that from the internet. But you can also get code and you can also get textures from online. And one of those I primarily use when it comes to game jams, at least. I love the asset store. Go check asset store. And of course, just to put it out there, I use Unity, and I use Unity a lot, so I might be a bit biased here. But there are of course also alternatives like the Unreal Market platform. I like the games icon. I can't draw at all. I can barely draw stick figures. So I really enjoy that we have these sites like game icons that can do a lot of the work. And of course, many of you can just go on the internet and download the right soundtracks. But what you see here is basically an online tool to create 8-bit music. And if you really think about it, why make them from scratch? Of course, if what you need is very specific and very tailored, then it makes good sense to make it yourself from scratch. But if you can save your time and prioritize your time to something more important, then it's a good place to start, and start by using other people's work. In a production environment, what we do in our company, we use a lot of plugins. Our next title that I showed you, Servotron, we use, and this is only a few of the plugins we use. We use a tool called ShaderForge, so we don't have to develop our shaders from scratch. This does a lot of the nasty work for us. Universal Sound Effects, it's a good package on the Unity Asset Store. It's basically just a very general package with a lot of sounds, pretty good. We have something called Vectorosity. It does a lot of line rendering and math. I don't know the math, that's what we have Vectorosity for, so I can sit down and be even more lazy. And a good practice is to instead of keeping, because you will probably participate in more game jams. You will probably have school projects, student projects you would like to continue working on. And whenever you're done with those projects, instead of just throwing it away, save it. Save it in a little package. Save all the artists out there who are creating art, save your content, save it in a little package in a USB stick you can keep with you. For all you coders out there, take your code, put it nicely, put some comments on it, and then for the next game jam you participate, you can just put it up and start. Then you're not starting from scratch anymore. And of course, the same goes for sound. Keep your auditory library, because it's going to be valuable to you. You're going to have a big leap in front of the others if you actually just save some of your work. Skip the endless discussions. Too many times I've been at game jams, and yeah, something like this happens. And I understand the logic why people really like to discuss. Like we need to be on the same page. It would be horrible if we were on the same page and we developed in different directions. And if we really discussed it thoroughly, I think it's pronounced, then we're gonna make no mistakes. It's gonna just go smooth sail. I can tell you that's not gonna happen. So, in my opinion, in order to skip all this discussion part, just skip that and just jump to the fun part, because it is much more easy to discuss with your hands actually when you can present something. So very early on, whenever you found a group and you feel like, this is nice, go together and maybe try to create a prototype. And a prototype, you probably know a lot about prototypes, so I won't go into details. But consider making paper prototypes. Maybe if you can create your game as a physical play. If you have access to Lego, use that. Another way of getting rid of discussions very quickly is actually to assign roles to each other. Each person take a role in so let's say one is the game designer or one is the programmer, and then that person simply just has the veto on those sort of decision making. Of course, you should listen to your advisors, but in the end, you're the one who can just cut the string, and so you guys can continue. And if it goes very sour, dice your way out of it. So if there's some, let's say I want to make a space game, or someone else says I want to make a cowboy game. Well, it's a very subjective manner. So take out the dices and throw them, and and simply just go with that, because it's much more productive for you guys to simply just get started producing something and test it out. In a production environment, usually what I see is the best thing is actually to wear hats. Of course, you have more time to discuss certain matters when it comes to in a production environment, but at some point, the discussion can really be too much. Someone has to cut the string and simply stop the discussion. And the only thing I have seen work properly is that someone has the role to say, we should not discuss this topic anymore. Let's just stop it, because I am the game designer, and my word is law. Version control. Okay, bit technical matter, but I think it's very important for game jammers, and because some individuals take this, I don't say for granted, but I see very horrible approaches once in a while. I remember some of my first game jams, we used a USB stick and simply just had to transfer the game over and over and all the changes, and when the artist made some new textures, they had to be transferred. It went horribly slow. Very often files were missing, and at some point we upgraded to using Dropbox instead, and now it's just a new range of issues popping up. So in a game jam context, okay, maybe I should just elaborate what this is, because maybe not everyone knows. Basically what I'm talking about is synchronizing your work. Make sure that you are working on the same project. And there are different tools for this job. I would not recommend, okay, so to put it very shortly, using the USB stick approach. It's a very fine, it's an okay solution for game jam. It's acceptable, but it's very not optimal. So some of you have probably already upgraded to the fantastic Google Drive and Dropbox solution, where you basically just share your work. But as you maybe already have experienced, it can get tricky. You can very easily lose work in the process. So my suggestion for you guys would be learn to use a versioning control such as Git or Perforce. And there's probably other tools for this, but what I can say is this tool allows you, it's basically a backup system. Okay, so Dropbox and Google Drive, they are not very good at handling backup, but these tools are. But also, what I like to point out is that these tools are much more complicated to use. But why is this so important for me? Well, after you're done at this game jam, and in the future would like to be part of a company, you will not see Dropbox or USB stick as a viable option. That is simply not. The only thing you would use is version control, and version control is, yeah, everything. So it's okay that you don't use Git or Perforce for this game jam, but I would really advise you to at least look into this topic, because if you as a team can synchronize your work, just remove the overhead of sharing the project with each other. You can save so much time. You don't have to you can save so much time and spend that time on developing a nice, fun game instead of struggling with technical issues. Consider all shortcuts. I like this very much, but it's also very abstract. Of course you should consider all shortcuts. It makes good sense, but what is a shortcut basically? I have a tendency to always think that shortcuts are for lazy people, and shortcuts are evil in the sense, because you would have to make bad practices sometimes. I know that especially programmers tend to be very bad at taking shortcuts, because, oh no, this solution is not optimized. Well, who cares about optimization in a game jam context? And I would like to present a very small anecdote of a very cool shortcut I saw at a game jam once. So I know a few animators and programmers, a bunch of graphical artists, and they are not very good at programming at all. But they would very much like to make a game that included PvP. So, okay, how on earth are you going to do that and you don't know anything about code and networking? Well, they knew enough to create something from scratch, but they didn't know how to actually implement any networking. So instead, they, and it's very important that the players were not allowed to see each other's screens, so it has to be separate screens. And what they did is that they made a game that instead of having the size of a normal screen, they made it the double screen thing. They booted the game on a single computer, and what they did is just extended the two screens and flipped them. And one controlled one of the protagonists in their game with a keyboard, and one of the mouse with the other protagonist with a mouse. Of course, this would probably not have worked in a production environment, but it was a very clever trick to get the feeling of networking up and running, and it worked, and that was the amazing part of it. Shortcuts are also used in professional environments. One of my favorite shortcuts I've seen is in Fallout 3. There's, I think they launched a DLC, an expansion pack, where there's a train you could step on, and I don't remember if you actually can drive it or when you can. However, they don't have any vehicle mechanics. And, well, maybe a programmer could have sat down and spent like a few months developing a vehicle, but that would simply be too much. So instead, they found that it was more easier for them to create a character that used a train as a hat that the player could enter. And that saved them a lot of time. I think that's very, very clever. The same also goes, I know of a lead programmer at, I think it was Press Play. And they have something called the spaghetti code diadem. And what it basically meant is that at some point where everything became more critical, time has to be saved, we're running out of time, the programmers have to take shortcuts, nasty shortcuts once in a while. And of course it feels bad for a programmer, or maybe not necessarily just programmers, or maybe also artists, to take these nasty shortcuts. So they actually had this toy diadem that whoever wore this diadem were allowed to do all the nasty shortcuts you could possibly think of, and nobody were allowed to judge him. And therefore the spaghetti code diadem. And well, the shortcuts worked, they reached their deadlines, but only because they took the necessary shortcuts. And of course, I would also point out, not all shortcuts are nice. You should really, before you take a shortcut, you should define what is your goal. It would be very bad for you to take a shortcut. You have a very big goal in mind, and then you take a route, a shortcut, and then you can't get to your goal, like certain other projects. So, yes, that's it. That's what
have some time for questions, if there are any.
Yep, if there are any questions, of course, go ahead. Yes?
How did you actually get to decide that you wanted to make games, and kind of, can you give us an overview of what it was like to kind of crack your own how did you get to the decision that you wanted to actually create your own company to build games, and kind of how did you get to do it? Like, can you give us basically the ups and downs that you went through?
Yeah, I can do that. It's a long story, so I'll do it very short. We were a bunch of guys who met each other at a what do you call it, semester, and we found out that we liked each other and we liked making games, and we were said, well, why not make a game company? And it was actually that simple at the very beginning. But then, as we progressed, we realized that it's not that simple just to make a company. And we didn't go through individuals like lawyers. We had to learn everything by ourselves. And that's probably the first mistake we did as a company that could have saved us a lot of headache. So if any of you feel like, damn, it could be very nice to start a game company, I would instead of just trying to figure out where should I start, instead of doing that, find someone here in Aalborg. We have like a lot of erhvervsrådgiver. Advisors, advisors here in Aalborg who will very much like to help individuals to get started, because it's a very big thing to start a new company. Where should you start? It's so broad, so they can help you out with the basic things. But getting from the point of where we're just developers and to the point where we thought it could be nice to develop games, it was very loose. It just like drink a couple of beers, and then someone comes up with a stupid idea, and then you just go with it.
Yeah. I think also in that we, during our first couple of semesters, we also had this, what we call it, Friday